afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the final round. Finals day, you could call this. Earlier on, European Championship in the Radical Sim Racing brought to a close at the Zandvoort circuit. This time around, a few hours later, it's Mid-Ohio for the last round of the Americas Championship. After this, 7 pros and 7 AMs will be ready to go in the World Finals. A few more drivers will have to work their way through the qualifiers a week earlier. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to RaceSpotTV. I'm Ewan O'Leary alongside Ron Mounds in commentary with Romero Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras tonight. We were here on Friday, Ron, at the Mid-Ohio course that denotes the last round of this circuit in the Americas Championship, and it was difficult to overtake, certainly, but will a bit of strategy tonight, I wonder, make it a little bit easier, a little bit more interesting for us, maybe?
Yeah, I have a feeling that pit lane may be these drivers' friends come time for this race here. We've always seen throughout this championship in 2025, the strategy plays a huge factor in deciding who can jump in front of who. But here at Mid-Ohio, I feel like we're probably going to crank that up a couple of notches past 10, probably even past 12 for that matter. But look at the calendar that we have had. Absolutely fantastic racing action. Got it all kicked off at the Nordschleife, went to Road America, Road Atlanta, Montreal in the form of Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, Interlagos, Watkins Glen. Then we found ourselves in a really tough slot of races after the end of the summer break and the Sebring race in late August. Mosport for round number 8, Belle Isle last time out for round number 9, and to end this season off at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, probably the most challenging track from the entirety of the season. And yes, I put it above the Nordschleife. The Nordschleife may be green hell, but Mid-Ohio feels like the back rooms for some.
Well, let's see how they get on tonight. In the AM standings coming in tonight, it's probably going to be the most interesting because Jose Gonzalez has by no means sewn up the championship overall. He's 41 points ahead of Jarek Dunkovic, though, with John Benlid only 7 points further back. RaceSpot's own J.R. Gregory is 4th, should be through to the World Final, but you never know. Joe Jacqueline, Cedric Ohion and Colby Book not that far behind, and Charles Kresic on the outside looking in is just 6 points behind. James Frasnick has a mathematical chance, although not a likely one. Adrian Fernandez rounds out the top 10. Aiden Young is leading the pro standings by 43 points. That confirms him as the champion because he's got such strong drop weeks ahead of Ryan Odo. John Butterfur and Roberto Diaz are pretty close in attendance there, with Lucas Vieira rounding up the top 5. Graham Sanders and Diego Zuccarelli are already confirmed in the World Finals. David Unger, Racing Fazui, Cameron Martineau and everybody else will have to go through the qualifier. In the team standings, it has gotten a little bit more spaced out in recent weeks, especially in the AMs, with Lima Racing now leading by 172 points. The gap was basically nothing a few weeks ago. There's a big turnaround late on. But Team ERC are not quite done yet. They're holding off Saltpeck Precision Racing currently by 98 points. There are enough on the table here tonight for that to change. After all, it's more than 100 for a win if you sweep up all the bonuses. So you never ever know what can happen in this series, and we'll keep an eye on that pro team standings at the very end. Last time out, it was Belle Isle, and it was a bit of a quiet one, to be honest with you. There was not so many in the field, but made lesser by the difficulty of the circuit. This is how they began, and immediately a spin off of the start, unfortunately, all the way down the field for J.R. Gregory. Jarek Dunkovic was making moves, and he started down towards the back end of the Anfield, but gave us some great entertainment throughout the afternoon. He got past Joel Jacqueline here in the early minutes of the race and would continue that on. Ryan Odo would make a couple of mistakes down here at the end of the back straight, which would put paid to his race. That was the first of them, going wide into the wall, and that wall just juts out. Not good for front left suspensions coming into that right-hander, which is a shame for him. It really held him back in terms of challenging Aiden Young, and that's what would seal the title for Young. Jarek Dunkovic would also get damaged at some point along the way, and he would have to stop early, so his early progress was undone in its entirety early on in the day. He would pit and get back into the game, though, and look to re-overtake some guys out there on the circuit. Ryan Odo was still walking wounded and trying to make it to the pit stop window in a way that Dunkovic couldn't, and Lucas Vieira pounced on that for Team ERC. Down the inside he went and up into the top 3. Dunkovic would soon be back out and regaining these places. This is just over the halfway mark as he tried to pass John Benlid round the outside through the fountain section, the inside at the final part, and he does get back into what at the time was 9th position overall. James Franzik made his final pit stop very late on in the AM class, but Jose Gonzalez had more than enough in hand to take the lead there. And Aidan Young had more than enough in hand out front to take the race win at Detroit as well in the pros, and the title with it as well. Jose Gonzalez would come across the line in the AM class to take a big step forward towards the title, although it is not mathematically done yet today, even though he holds 41 points over his nearest competitor. Safe to say, Ron, that Belle Isle was always going to be one of the most difficult tracks on this calendar, and it certainly proved to be. Even Ryan Odo getting caught out, that's when you know it is very, very difficult in the race.
Yeah, we were always expecting Belle Isle to be a tricky one. We had seen it in the Friday official broadcast, and we were on a couple of nights beforehand how tough that race was. And with these hour-long league races, expected the drama. We certainly got it. Belle Isle, such a tough track. It is one that I hold near and dear to my heart. It's a bit of a shame that we don't have it on the IndyCar and IMSA calendars anymore. However, that track in a Radical SR10 is a bit inhospitable. So very tough race for those competitors last time at, but here to bring this season to a conclusion, these drivers looking to end it on a competitive note. And Ubaldo Diaz, who started off the season so good, fell into a bit of a rut, if we are being honest. Currently your top qualifier only 1/100th of a second in front of your 2025 Radical America's Pro Class champion Aidan Young. James Franzik and Jose Gonzalez currently 1 and 2 in the AM category, P4 and P5 as it stands at the present moment. Do want to raise that with Ryan Odo out here on the racetrack. Pretty much he needs to take the start and have a bodily temperature roughly in the 90s to clinch the team championship for Team ERC, because it doesn't look like any of the Solpec drivers decide to show up for this final round with that driver championship completely out of reach. But still expecting to round off this season with some fun. I think we're going to have a good time here tonight, Ewan.
Yeah, it is a shame about Botafour and Sanders. They've not been here for the last 2 rounds now, but hopefully they do make it to the World Finals. But we'll just discuss in a moment, as we see the grid here in a second, what kind of race we're going to see here, because very close in qualifying. Diaz, Young and Odo separated by less than 600ths, and there they are, 1, 2 and 3. James Franzik takes the AM pole. He's just over half second off pole, with Jose Gonzalez in 5th. Diego Zuccarelli alongside. Gonzalez needing to just stay steady over the course of this race. Top 8 or so should be enough for him. Jared Tunkovic is going to be one of those trying to take it off him. He's in second at Charles Kresic, who needs a good day today. John Benlid and Colby Buck round out the top 10, with Cedric Ayon and Joel Jacklin rounding up the top 12, and then J.R. Gregory. Yeah, just over half a tenth between the top 3. Is it going to be one of those races where it's very difficult to overtake once again, or are we going to see the pit strategy finally open it up between Diaz, Young and Odo? Because the ingredients are there for a good race between those 3.
I said right towards the start that it may be the strategy that wins out at the end of it all here at Mid-Ohio. I said this during the official broadcast, and I'll say it here in this league race yet again. Mid-Ohio, so old school of a racetrack. Part of the IndyCar calendar, IMSA races here every single year, but this track definitely does have a rather dated feel to it. I think it puts on some good racing, but you gotta be aggressive to try and get some moves done. So considering that this is the final race of the season, and some of these racers just looking to end off this 10-round campaign that started many moons ago with a good result, I think that could be the reason why we get some good racing. But either way, I'm just looking forward to a fun and clean night of racing action to bring to a conclusion what has been a fantastic and really top 2025 Radical America's Championship.
And it is going to be the final race for some before the World Finals. The top 3 will all be there, or at least they're all qualified. Let's hope they will indeed all be there. Of course, the qualifiers will be coming to you in 2 weeks' time on the 16th of November. The 23rd of November, the week later, is the race itself, the World Finals itself. We'll maybe discuss a little bit about the format discussion a little bit later on in the middle part of this race as well. But for the final time in 2025, the Radical SimRacing America's Championship is set to get underway. Diaz on the right-hand side, Young on the left, and the green flag waves with Ryan Odo trying to come through the middle. It's not a good start, unfortunately, from Franzik, who has just bobbled away in the AM lead, and immediately Gonzalez takes the lead there. Franzik's back to the midfield, in fact. Odo gets in front of Young, his long-time title rival. Finally ceded that championship to him at Belle Isle. He's in front of him on the open lap of the race at Mid-Ohio.
And Franznik with a cataclysmic start, leaving the line. The thing about this league race that does make it unique from other leagues, standing starts here in these SR10s, just like the official races, and that really came back to bite Franznik on the hind end there. So tricky to try and get these cars off the line to make sure you don't spin up the tires too much. Look at that, slides one way, slides the other, slides multiple different directions. The starts in these SR10 races always so vital, and you gotta balance that clutch and really cook it all the way down to the canvas if you want to minimize it.
Unfortunately, Franznik just didn't quite get that right, and he's back to 7th, so loses 3 positions off of the start immediately. Here is the biggest mover up or down in the opening lap of this race. Through into the final sector for Obodo Diaz, who has converted that pole position into an early race lead here in front of Ryan Odo. Now the question really is going to be, does Odo and Young, both of them actually sit behind and wait, fuel save and whatever, or will they try and seal an early march here on Obodo Diaz, who generally you'd say is maybe a little bit slower than them, but looks pretty quick tonight.
And Diaz, I think, is running this race for one simple reason. He wants to return to victory lane after winning round number 2 of the season at Road America and showing some very good speed in the season opener at the Nordschleife. Hasn't been able to visit victory lane since. He wants to try and change that here today. Meanwhile, the 2 young Americans of Ryan Odo and Aiden Young, who have been battling for the championship all season long, looking at their own little scrap at the very end. And Aiden Young, really no pressure for him. He's just going after all that glory as it goes for the dive on Odo.
Big dive down the inside. Dunkovic attacks Gonzalez as well. 2 side-by-side battles on lap number 2 here. You've got to strike early if you want to strike at all. And Aiden Young does go through. Well, that is a surprise. Didn't see too much of that on Friday night, but immediately on lap 2, Aiden Young wasn't messing about there.
Yeah, Young immediately going for the dive, heading into turn number 2. One thing that we did have brought to our attention in reference to the officials compared to what we have got here today is maybe a change in track temperatures and track conditions. Ryan Odo, who joined the broadcast booth after we were done with Friday's official race, was kind of talking about what made overtaking so difficult in that official broadcasted race just this past Friday. And he was mentioning how the track conditions were so ice cold that nobody could really push. Here, however, we've got much hotter track temps, currently looking at 79 degrees Fahrenheit for the ambient track temperature. Meanwhile, that's 106. On the hotter end, maybe a little bit greasier. It gives these drivers an incentive to push, but also gives them the opportunity to have a small little peek down the inside in case one of the racers all around them maybe overheat those tires a bit.
On board with Gonzalez as he tries to get near Jared Dunkovic here. Might just be settling in a little bit. As far as the AM Championship is concerned, this is absolutely fine for Jose Gonzalez, by the way. Being in 5th place with Dunkovic in 4th, it would only be a 4-point loss. And he's got 41 to fall back on here. So, as I said earlier, he needs to be right up the front here, to be honest, as Dunkovic, with the lowest scoring position being 13th place, 44 points. Dunkovic needs to finish in the top 2 overall tonight to actually have a chance at all, and even then you'd be requiring Gonzalez to be a very, very long way down. So almost less worth worrying about that actually, and just focusing on your races. Charles Kresic goes wide. There's an easy place to make a mistake through turn 12.
Yeah, many spots on this racetrack where those mistakes can bite, and bite really hard. I mentioned the fact that this is an old school racing facility. Mid-Ohio has been around for many, many decades, and just based off the asphalt, you can tell that this is an old scan of the circuit too. Not a lot of runoff area to speak of. Even in the year since this scan on iRacing was done, there's pretty much no asphalt runoff area to speak of on the entirety of the circuit, even heading off through the likes of turn number 1, which is so quick. Drivers heading off through that turn at close to terminal velocity, and even turn number 4, which has seen some many wild rides over the years. I think back to the wild ride that Simon Pagenaud had there about 2023, if my memory serves me correctly, and a suspension failure heading down in there. I think it was either a suspension or a brake failure. Spun it off in the gravel, flipped about 6 times, and that was unfortunately the end of his IndyCar career. Michael Andretti had a similar moment in the gravel trap at turn number 4. Saw some racers take some trips off in there in the official race this past Friday. We'll have to keep an eye on that throughout this as we take a look at the moment from Ohayon heading down into turn 12.
So Charles Kresic is off in front. Oh, and he spins trying to get back on the racetrack. He tries to get going again. Sort of using the pit entry road almost, but obviously not going down pit lane. And he slides straight into Cedric Oyon, who's got to be feeling a little bit poorly about that. And that puts him in big danger here, of course, as far as the top 7 is concerned. But what's happening here? Oh, sorry. That's a still image, sorry. I thought Diaz was stopped. Yes, so Kresic would be challenging Oyon in that situation for that all-important top 7 and a place in the World Finals. However, he has crashed with Kresic, so that makes the equation just a little bit easier. And Colby Buck will be bringing a bit of a sigh of relief as well, because Buck is only 6 points in front of Kresic at the start of the day. He'll be pleased to know that his main rival has had early trouble here.
Yeah, it's a nice relief heading off into the World Finals, knowing that you can just have that straight shot in there. You don't have to worry about dealing with the qualifying event. That is going to be a big reprieve. That has been a change made to the other Radical Sim Racing leagues and the run-up to the World Finals here in 2025 compared to 24. Did not have a qualifier event last year. We've got it here in 25. Seen many a different racer take their chance at running here in these SR10s. Last year, it was really the Ryan Oda and Lucas Vieira show, as those two who actually became teammates here in 25 were the ones battling for that Pro Class Championship here in the Americas Series, and they brought it all the way up until the final race of the season at the Nordschleife in Wells, the 12th round of that championship, compared to only 10 here this year. You look at the top 2, though, they made their debut in the Radical Americas Championship here in 2025. Ubaldo Diaz and Aiden Young tried to do a little something new in their own sim racing adventures, and it worked out well for Young, as he's going to walk away with the championship crown. As we see Charles Kresic, who midway through the season joined Flying Line Racing, and that stable not going to end this season on the note that he had in mind with that big collision off through the final few corners.
No, certainly not. He's only just in front of Oyon at the moment, but he needs to overturn a 34-point deficit, so it's not looking good, and that might well be our top 7 settled, unless there's going to be any big surprises towards the end here. The likes of Jacqueline and J.R. Gregory are all here, so they're not likely to be overhauled because they're not here today, which is good news for them as they complete another lap here. 8 minutes gone. We saw this so often on Friday where the drivers were so close that you'd think, well, surely they're going to make a move here. But it just never arrived on that evening. I mean, Young has already proven that it is possible to overtake around here. You've got to be, you know, with conviction down the inside, and Young was. But even, it's remarkable, isn't it? Even being this close, less than a third of a second away, is still not quite close enough. As threatening as Young looks down in towards turn 4 at the moment, he's still too far back.
I think the big thing with it all is the matter of risk versus reward. I always speak at length about these SR10s and the unique driving characteristics that they have. And one of the things that I always raise is the touchiness of the brakes. Such a fine margin between locking up, pulling up to the turn in normal fashion, or just overshooting it by a country mile. You gotta balance that brake pedal very, very finely. So to go for a move here at Mid-Ohio, we look at some of the other tracks where we have seen some absolutely brilliant action. Sebring, that was a darn good race for round number 7. Watkins Glen, that was a pretty good race, the one leading up to that. We've had some darn good races this season, but the ones where these drivers are a bit more concealed in their efforts to just try and go through this race without incidents, there are always at tracks where you have a lack of any sort of runoff area. These competitors know that if they try and go for a move, let's say heading off into turn...
Sorry, mistake from Ubaldo Diaz. He got loose there on the way through turn 2, and we've got a change for the lead here, and there might well be a change for second as well here, as Diaz is going to be under pressure from Odo. He's going to be trying to win that lead back again from Aiden Young, because he might not get it back again if he doesn't get it back now. Outside line, is he going to get the room? He knows he isn't, and Aiden Young takes the lead. He's forced Ubaldo Diaz into an error with some massive pressure, and 10 minutes in, the championship leader is back to the front.
Right as I was talking about mistakes from racers and the fear of mistakes if they tried to go for a move, Aiden Young proving that he can try and do it to somebody else, psych them into their own little trip up. And for Ubaldo Diaz, it's off through the challenging turn that is Keyhole. Turn number 2 here at Mid-Ohio has claimed many a driver over the years. Such a tricky turn downhill, trying to deal with that turn with so many changes of asphalt. It's patchy as you head your way off through that part of the racetrack. So Aiden Young applying that pressure expertly in the early stages to force that mistake, as Odo trying to force it down the inside, heading down into turn number 1.
Maybe this is a way through, because turn 3 and 4 have been so unfruitful in the last couple of nights that maybe turn 2 is a go, and there he goes. Right, Odo straight through, but Diaz goes for the cutback. Surely this is giving Aiden Young a gap that already at this stage might well be a race winning margin. Here comes Odo again, though, back in the slipstream, just as Diaz was last time. To be fair on Young, I'm not sure how much more successful Ryan Odo's going to be. Oh, there's contact. Diaz was trying to come over on him. The flash of the lights from Odo. He's not happy as he tries to get into second. Is he going to have another fire down the inside? How are the tempers fraying here? Ryan Odo will definitely be unhappy now. 1.5 seconds out front to the leader, who is gone.
Yeah, as these racers throw haymakers at each other, Aiden Young gonna treat this as a casual Sunday night cruise, driving off into the sunset. Already has that championship. He's gonna be running at 10/10 because frankly he doesn't have anything to lose. Ubaldo Diaz and Ryan Odo, meanwhile, they're gonna try and go for bragging rights too, as this battle may get a little bit ugly. They're oh so close to making contact all through the final few turns, as they nearly were a matter of about a lap ago.
The different lines they keep taking through turn 1 there. We'll talk about this, I want to analyse this properly in a moment, but we're focused in at the moment on a great battle between Ubaldo Diaz and Ryan Odo, 2 of the great drivers in this series, as they've proven over the course of this championship season. Diaz with a win to his name. He was championship leader, I think, after 2 or 3 rounds, certainly after round 2, maybe after round 3 as well, in this championship. Ryan Odo's been leader as well at some stage as he heads down the inside now at 4. He's not quite going to get down the inside of Diaz here. Oh, he's on the outside though, and there's contact. He saves it. He corrects the other way. He will lose a second. At least he's still pointing the right way. But Ryan Odo's momentum is completely destroyed now. That's the second time in 2 laps. He'll be unhappy with his opponent.
I'm sure Ryan Odo, the usually calm and collected American behind the wheel of that car, he is going to be fuming, and rightfully so. A season that started off with so much promise, with a win at the Nordschleife for round number 1, going to end as it stands currently not in a championship, but probably even worse than that, with a string of some unfortunate results. You know, as much as Aiden Young and Ryan Odo have traded wins throughout this season, there have been a lot of points of pure unbridled frustration from Odo. I don't even think it's a matter of him being upset with the way that he was raced with Ubaldo Diaz as of late here in this race. I think it's just been a building of pressure, a building of tension, and a building of general disgust for how things have gone for him here in this season. Unfortunate moment for Odo, as it has really spread out at the front of Pro. Meanwhile, at the front of AM, it is close between Dunkovic and Gonzalez.
It is. Although Dunkovic is very much controlling at the moment, and Gonzalez just following, as you'd expect to see. Benelid gets past Colby Buck, meantime, for 8th place, a little bit further down. There's been quite a lot of action in the first 15 minutes here, I've got to say. At a race we thought was going to be very hard to overtake. We've seen a lot of aggression and a lot of good moves. Benelid's move is going to be brief on Colby Buck, because he's coming straight back down the inside as well. And who's going to come out on top here? Very wide from Colby Buck. I mean, there's giving room, and then there's giving an acre. And that's what Colby Buck did there to Benelid. Maybe you say overly nice, but better than the other way round. And John Benelid gets 8th place back again.
Yeah, what's worse to do on a racetrack? Just open the door. You know, the best way I could describe about being very nice and forgiving out there on the circuit is, I'm not sure if you've ever been in this situation, Ewan, but I know I certainly have. You're walking into a shop or something of the sorts, you open up that door to let one person in, and then you basically get treated as the unofficial doorman. You're just holding the door for every single person that walks in and out of that business for a matter of 5 minutes, and nobody is going to relieve that spot because they just think that's what you do for your job. I'm not sure if I'm the only one that's ever been in that spot, but that's what it feels like being overly nice on a racetrack. One person goes through, and next thing you know, you're all the way at the back, and everybody everybody's going to think that you're the one that's just putting around the racetrack and letting them feel good.
Not for 5 minutes, I must admit. What's your record?
I'm trying to think now. This goes back to my elementary school days. 8? I think it was 8.
8 minutes?
See, the thing about Philadelphia is a lot of us in this city don't really care. If you open the door, we'll just kind of shrug our shoulders and say, okay. And then there's another part of us that will open the door for you and just let you do all that. In my defense, I think, looking back on that, I was always told that that was kind of something that I should do, to open the door for as many people as I can. I have had it happen going into a Wawa, which is a store around here, but Ryan Odo actually making an early call to come down pit lane, breaking up the door opening discussion.
I can't tell you how quickly I would have left after 8 seconds. Never mind. But, never mind. Ryan Odo into the pit lane, as you say. And I'm glad he's distracted us, because who knows where that could have gone. John Bentlid and Joel Jacklin follow him in as well. And he's going to take a long stop here, Odo. He's going to try and time this, I think, into a nice gap, and he has done nicely. I think Bentlid and Jacklin's stop have helped him, actually. But I think that's the right call from Odo. You know, it's the classic thing in this series, isn't it, about pitting early, that, you know, you're always going to end up on heavier fuel, and very often you end up in traffic as well. Now, the second part doesn't quite apply to Odo here, but we'll see what he can do with a heavier car now.
Yeah, I think Odo just wanted to have a bit of a change. It's like, I'm not sure the best way I could describe it, breaking out another good metaphor. It's like if you have some bad luck on iRacing and you just want to change your paint scheme, even if it's just swapping some of the colors around, you just think, okay, at this point, I'm in this stint, it's like some bad voodoo or something going on here, or someone's poking a voodoo doll with a bunch of pins, and I'm just not feeling good. So he goes for the change. Everybody's going for a change, though. Aiden Young, Ubaldo Diaz, Jared Dunkovic, and Jose Gonzalez, the latest to pit.
And this must be nearly end of fuel, because we are nearly 20 minutes in, to be fair. So almost surprising that we haven't seen more pit stops before this. But there goes Diaz right to the end of the line. Now, does he try and get a little bit of track position here over Young? Does Young go for a 10-second stop to stop him from doing that? And no, not quite. But Diaz doesn't try and get ahead of him anyway. So 15 seconds from Diaz. He's going to go behind Odo, whose stop was 13 seconds. So Young, Odo, Diaz in that order. They're also in that order as far as short pit stops go. So Aiden Young's was shortest, then Odo, then Diaz. On the corrected order, Odo would be just behind Diaz, kind of like where he was before, and Young would be a second closer to Odo, so just under 2 seconds out front. Effectively, the outlaps and inlaps were exactly the same. It's just the pit stop times now which are separating these three pro leaders.
Yeah, we have seen all season long how vital the pit strategy has played, both here in the Americas Championship. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's really affected the European Championship as well. I know those broadcasts usually conflict with some other shows that I've been on for just about as long as I've been broadcasting, so a bit hard to call out those, but I know you've been on the call for a decent chunk of the European season, so I'm sure it's been the case over there in that absolutely competitive and stacked field full of races that we usually see in the Friday officials.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you know, I'm going to enter a bit of a discussion, especially in the middle part of the race, about who we think is going to be up there in the World Finals and how the American and European fields stack up against one another, because I think it is always an interesting discussion based on the drivers we've seen, as Diaz is pushing hard here. Battles further down, though, in the meantime. John Bentlid and Kobe Buck again. They were only apart for a lap, and I think Bentlid pitted early to try and get away from Kobe Buck, but actually they set the same pit stop time, so they're together again. Charles Kresic is back ahead of JR Gregory, although unsure as to whether Kresic is going to be able to do this race on just one more stop, or whether he's going to have to make another. In the AM Championship, even with Jose Gonzalez taking a long pit stop there, 6 seconds longer than Dunkovic, he's still in championship winning position with that 6th place finish. In fact, anywhere in the top 8 would be good enough for Jose Gonzalez, even if Dunkovic would win the race overall, if I could get my words out. Gonzalez is doing enough at the moment I always enjoy a championship finale like this, Ron, but at the moment Gonzalez is not making it a particularly enthralling one, and he won't want it to be.
Yeah, he just wants to drive off into the sunset, and he's really put together a darn good season, has he, in the AM category. You look through the results, and of course that championship points lead that he has. Got it all up and rolling in some pretty convincing fashion with the win in round number 2 at Road America. Followed that up with a repeat win at Road Atlanta, became the first driver from both the Pro and the AM division to win back-to-back races, followed shortly thereafter by Young over in the Pros, who won rounds number 3 and 4. But then after that win from Gonzalez, Jared Dunkovich came around and was a bit of a thorn in his side for a decent period of time, and still arguably is, as Dunkovich is also able to grab 3 wins himself. But Gonzalez has 4, and although they have been a bit more broken up as of recent, with him winning at Interlagos and also scoring a W at Belle Isle, he still put together a darn good season. As we see J.R. Gregory with a half spin coming out of 2, ends up in the gravel trap. That's a far way to go off the track. Unfortunate for him. That Flying Line Racing stable still looking to end this season off on a high in that AM Teams Championship fight. That has been a strong stable ever since the drop of the green flag back in February now.
Yes. Unfortunately, the AM Championship has just drifted apart after the midway stage, where, as I say, it was really, really close. But unfortunately, that has got away. Yeah, as you say, Dunkovich not only stringing together the race wins, actually, but 4 in 5 rounds. He took points away from Gonzalez as well, cutting into his point lead every time. And on the one where he did lose points, it was only 7. So he massively gained through those middle races, but towards the end, unfortunately for him, Gonzalez has just pulled away again. 16 points crucially last week at Belle Isle. I mean, if that goes the other way, we've got a championship fight that is really, really close on our hands, but at the moment we don't quite. Neither in the Pro or the AMs. Aidan Young sealed it, by the way, at Belle Isle, the Pro Championship, so he's just trying to win the race overall. I think it is worth just entering into a bit of a discussion about the European versus American drivers. I think we touched a little bit on this on Friday after the broadcast run about how they're going to line up against one another. It's very, very hard to know because Ryan Odo very rarely, if we're looking at Americans championship drivers, just talking about the pros here, we see a replay of J.R. Gregory getting off the ground, off of turn 2. We don't see Ryan Odo very often because obviously we broadcast at, 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something Eastern time, so it's pretty inconvenient. We never see Aidan Young in the Friday night series, but we always see the Europeans against one another. So it's almost impossible to know, isn't it, how they're going to match up against one another. But it's going to be so fascinating, isn't it, in the World Finals to see who comes out on top, because the European side of things do have such a good track record in the pro side of things anyway.
See, I'm going to be honest and say that I am really fascinated to see what the America side of things can do come time for those World Finals. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an American. The reason why I'm saying that is because last season's champion, a driver who we kind of thought was going to be in title contention, but it never really materialized, Lucas Vieira, was your 2024 Radical America's champion here in the pro category, but he wasn't there for the World Finals. He didn't show up. Ryan Odo did show up, however, got struck with some pretty bad falling anvils. I think he had some internet connection issues during that event as well, and it just never really worked out for him, which I think was a bit of a shame. However, this year, I think we've got a very strong stable of racers, a side-by-side racing going on between Joel Jacklin and Colby Buck, 2 racers in the AM category. Gonna swap a route. Jacklin jumps his way up into 9th as Buck drops down to P10. But of course, Aidan Young is a driver that we will most certainly be keeping tabs on come time for the World Finals. We don't know how he stacks up in reference to the European competitors who, as I alluded to and as you alluded to as well, Ewan, usually compete in those Friday 2100 GMT broadcasted races. But Aidan Young, we speak about the driver that he is, and I mean, winning the championship, a race to spare, really emphasizes that a lot. But Young, a darn good driver on iRacing, just generally speaking, a darn good driver, period. We were actually hearing, funnily enough, talking about Aidan Young, had that discussion with Ryan Odo, and I believe it was Jared Dunkovich after the Friday broadcasted race, and they said, oh yeah, Aiden is probably, if he does do an interview, it's going to be 30 seconds long because he has got to go over and do some karting stuff here in the States. Aiden is a darn quick driver, both in the sim and in real life. That's part of the reason why he's part of that WSR Esports banner, which is everywhere nowadays in sim racing. I've seen him run in special events, of course, here in the Radical Americas Championship. Just about every single thing that I've seen Aiden Young run in, he has always been quick. So as much as we don't see him in those officials, we still need to keep our eyes on our dominant pro champion here from the Americas side of things, because Aiden Young, I think he is going to be a big force to be reckoned with come time for that World Finals event in about 2 weeks.
It's going to be a great event at the end of November. Meanwhile, JL Gregory and Charles Kresic continue on. Kresic looking to re-overtake JL Gregory here, but of course they are teammates in the Flying Line Racing team. Unfortunately, heading into today, an insurmountable, I think, 172 points off of the Lima Racing team, who are currently leading the way. It's John Benlid and Cedric Ohion, who have just been here more consistently. There's no drop rounds in the team's championship, which means that consistency is absolutely rewarded, and unfortunately if you just miss a couple, then you're going to fall behind. This maybe is why Kresic is back behind Gregory. He's just clipped that inside curve through turn number 1 and had to save his spin quite desperately there.
Yeah, and this is the first time we've seen those two Flying Line cars side by side. You can see something that JR has always wanted me to bring up, the mirrored paint schemes on those two Flying Line cars. You'll love to see it with the matte black and the chrome. That is far above my technical ability to do an iRacing paint scheme. I remember one time trying to do one with the other Porsche 963 GTP car. I looked at the Photoshop file for a little bit, tried to do a couple of things, and decided that my better option was probably to volunteer for some broadcasts, stick my hand out for a couple of shows, and then use that money to commission somebody who's actually good at making paint schemes to do it for me. Those are some darn good-looking race cars. A stable, very good-looking cars that we've got out there on the racetrack, although the car of Charles Kresic will not look that good with grass all over the front end of it.
Oh! He has to save his spin again there. When you get those tyres just heated up a little bit, it can get very, very difficult on the traction, and that is what Charles Kresic is finding at the moment. And Aiden Young is going to want this exchange to be over very quickly. Kresic in front of him is holding him up just slightly, but it will only last a corner. And Aiden Young, not least for losing time, but just for his own safety, I think will be pleased to be past him there.
Yeah, I can imagine the terror behind Aiden Young. Well, partial terror, I should say. If he was in a championship situation where he had to worry about just making it to the end and winning this race in order to seal the deal, he'd probably be a heck of a lot more nervous than he already was. That had to have been a close call, though, seeing just a cloud of smoke and a bunch of grass dust up in the air. But thankfully for Aiden Young, he did negotiate that lap traffic. Does have to worry about between now and the very end as we get closer to that halfway mark of this race. Riding on board with Odo with a bit of a slide out of turn number 2. And you know, funnily enough, turn 2 is actually the lead up to it is one of the many parts of this racetrack that has been changed. There have only been a few parts of this racetrack that have seen significant changes, though. I'm not sure if you've ever done a broadcast here, Ewan, of the classic configuration, I think it is, with that small little bean-like chicane heading down into the keyhole. That was actually the original configuration of this track all the way through up to the 80s.
What,
yeah, the little, like, goofy chicane. Yeah, the goofy chicane right before turn 2.
Oh, right, sorry, the chicane, yeah, sorry. I thought you meant the hairpin that comes pretty much straight after turn 1 to make it almost an S-bend. No, okay. The chicane, that is a bit weird, isn't it? I've only ever seen that on a track map, so I don't actually know what it's like to drive through. Is it fast chicane? Is it quite annoyingly slow? What's the...
Really testing my technical knowledge. I would have to say the correct technical term here, I would probably say the best way to describe that chicane is finicky. Now, I will be fully transparent and say I've never done a broadcast of a race on that configuration of this track in fast cars. Most of the time that I've broadcasted it, it has been in it's been in Formula V's, Spec Racer Fords, Formula Fords, kind of an SECA level competition, and quite fitting considering the SECA does run many an event here throughout the calendar year, and doubly fitting considering I've been a member of the SECA for coming up to my 11th year. Probably by the time we get the 2026 Radical America season up and rolling, time flies when we're having fun. But I have not driven through that section of track in a super duper fast car, but I know in the slow cars it is just open enough whereby you can keep the speed rolling, but also open enough to the point where you do have to worry about slowing down slightly, and overtakes through there can be a bit difficult. But if you look back on old videos of IndyCar races here back in the 80s, you can see some of the configuration changes that have been made to this track over the years. That was one of them. And heading off through the mid-sector, what I believe is now Thunder Valley, there was a small little bend in the road as we headed our way off through that part of the racetrack. I say we, that was a change that was done way back in the day. I was probably in my negative 30s when they made that track configuration change. But no, when they designed this track many moons ago, they have rather stuck to their guns in this very rural part of the country. I think I was sharing this story on Friday. I have actually been to this track in real life. It was back in 2021, coming back from a race in a farther western part of Ohio, in Toledo, which is in the northwest section of the state. Mid-Ohio, slap dab in the middle between Low Ohio and High Ohio. And the population around this track is you probably have more barn owls and cows living around this track than you do have people.
Just also, Low Ohio and High Ohio can't be a region. That just doesn't seem like it's a thing. But I guess that it is. Yeah, all you have to do is look at a map of this place and realise there is nowhere near it. Although there is a town with a very, well, in fact, the same name as to the one where I nearly grew up. Very near, and it's not the same place, but because of course all your town names are stolen from ours. But there you go, just a bit of a UK-US crossover for you there. But anyway, it is, as you say, very rural around here, and an iconic racetrack as well in terms of its history, and so many events here down the years, from its inception all the way down in the 60s. Still getting IndyCar and Trans Am racing, etc. But no IMSA anymore, sadly. No NASCAR style races here either. When I first started to watch NASCAR, the Xfinity Series was here every year, but no longer. That is the case, and that is a shame to some as well. But it's a difficult circuit. It does feel like, I must say, with the Xfinity cars and Xfinity drivers around here, that's a pretty tough assignment, isn't it, in the season? And they had that for 7 years.
I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, the Truck Series raced here for a extensive period of time as well, and so did ARCA. I'm not sure if it's part of the NASCAR calendar anymore, which, it was the NASCAR word, that's probably going to just start a firestorm in the YouTube chat, considering what happened at Phoenix a little bit earlier on here tonight. But we're not touching that one. We're just going to swiftly and abruptly move on. This track is really unique. It does have that old school feel to it, and you just look at the events that are run here every single calendar year. A lot of the stuff is it's grassroots racing that you see more commonly here than anything else. Motorcycles do make their appearance. In fact, the one time that I did visit this track back in 2021, it was in the midst of, I think, Randolph, the World Superbike schedule there for 2021. Got to see a little bit of the action as they headed their way down to the keyhole, and funnily enough, using that chicane section that I was mentioning a little bit earlier on, as we take a look at a replay to see the frantic nature of the start of this race, and really saw James Franznik drop back there.
Yeah, fortunate for Franznik, isn't it? The way he dropped back so early. He's not going to be able to win those positions back, I don't think, unfortunately. The race has gone up ahead of him, but if he had the track position over the likes of Dunkovic and Gonzalez, then it would have been a much different race. So very shortly after this, I think maybe we'll probably have time to see the overtakes and the exchanges from that top three in the next few moments. But very soon after this, Ryan Oda, I think indeed on the second lap, wasn't it? Ryan Oda was overtaken by Adrian Young, and this is just the start of that lap now. And I think it puts to bed, well, it doesn't quite put it to bed that it's, you know, impossible to overtake round here, but I think it gives a good sort of design as to how you can do it here, because all Young did really was just have a lot of conviction down the inside of turn 4, and he made it work.
Yeah, that is a gutsy move to try and go for it. I was mentioning it a little bit earlier on before we really saw the trip up from everybody up towards the front that led to the shuffling that eventually went on in that battle for the podium spots. But this racetrack can be one that feels a little bit terrifying to even think about going for the moves, just because the worry about going off the track is so strong. Even with that move from Aiden Young as he headed his way into turn number 4, that was oh so close to him ending up in China Beach, going for a trip off into that gravel trap and really just being done for. To talk about the old school nature of this racetrack, it is built to somewhat old school like road standards back when they said, okay, what makes a good racetrack? Let's build it to the standards of the highways at the time. So you have what I believe they call breakaway zones, where if you go off the track just falls away from you, so you can't rejoin it. Turn 4 probably has the steepest fall off of them all. As you can see, really every single turn around this racetrack, once you go off the circuit, the track just falls away rather quickly. Turn 4, I think, is the greatest example of that.
On board with Ryan Odo, with just less than 25 minutes to go here. Just down board for a little bit here. I want to come round towards turn 1 and point something out here, because very different, interesting difference in line through turn 1, which you very rarely see amongst professionals. It's a bit of a shame, really, that in iRacing and sometimes in motorsport as well, that the real top professionals, the top guys, really don't have the option of different lines through corners in certain categories. But great that the radical mix and the race around Mid-Ohio here is so different. Last time, by the way, Odo lost half a second, even while he has been closing-ish on Young, and he's been extending his advantage over Diaz, which should see him stay in front. So this is out the final corner, and you hear the tyres really is starting to burn through these tyres a bit. 42 Celsius track temperature, but this is the difference. Have a look at this on the way towards turn 1. Early turning really hooks that left hand side of the car over the yellow curb there on the inside. And you'll notice from watching the rest of this race that is very different to the rest of the field, who are effectively scared to touch that curve. You might just kiss it with the left-hand side tyres, but Odo is properly over the inside there. As far as I can tell, Ron, there doesn't seem to be any lap time difference, but I remember Odo talking to us about this on Friday, asking, maybe it was Jared Dunkovic actually, who was with us as well, and he said, you know, what are you doing through turn 1? And, you know, I don't know whether it's because Odo's struggling to get a groove through there, or he thinks that he's quicker, and he's wondering if anybody else agrees with him. But at the moment, he's the only one who's pretty much doing it, you know, in towards turn number 1. And it's very rare that you see that, as I say, amongst professionals like this.
Yeah, that is rather gutsy, considering the fact that these SR10s usually don't take too well to running over the curbs, especially at high speeds. Got fantastic views. We rode on board with Jose Gonzalez. You can see the runoff area heading down to turn number 4. You pretty much just see the edge of the track and then the RVs parked outside. That is it. You can see nothing of the gravel trap. So tricky as you head your way off through that racetrack. As Aiden Young making an early call to come down pit lane. That's fascinating for the driver of the 427 machine.
Yeah, very early. We'll see whether Dunkovic gets in front, and he will do. In fact, Zuccarelli probably will as well. This is Gonzalez. Such a difficult final sector here, isn't it? Through the carousel there, the change in line they're having to take on is just amazing. Young gets out just in front of Gonzalez though, and have a look at this. Nowhere near as close to the inside. In fact, he's not even touching the curve on the left-hand side there. Really fascinating that there's such a difference between those two. A bit of an unexplained one as well. Hopefully we can talk to him about that at the end of the race. But Aiden Young's out in 5th position. He is 13 seconds in the box. And that must mean that Ryan Odo's pit stop is not too far away after that, and we'll see what a gap Young has. It will be less than the 3.5 seconds he had before, but I'm not sure it will quite be a battle for the lead at the moment.
Yeah, as we wait to see the rest of the field come down pit lane for their second stop, I do want to add in a little sidecar to the discussion that you just brought up, you, and talking about the drivers running different lines heading down into turn number 1. You hit the nail right on the head in terms of saying that there aren't too many turns in the global motorsports scene that really allow racers to run different approaches. I think turn 3 at Zandvoort is one of the only others that pops into my head. I'm sure there's others, but nonetheless, we do have the pit stop from Ryan Odo right now.
Yeah, didn't think it would be too much longer. And Ryan Odo comes into the pit lane meantime. Zuccarelli follows as well, by the way. Out of the pit lane already for Odo. Young not yet past him, and there he goes. So Ryan Odo will gain a bit of time there. In fact, his stop was 7/10 shorter. However, he is not any closer really to Aiden Young, not any closer than we thought. 1.6 seconds behind. That's about the difference it was before these pit stops began, before the first pit stops began. And so Young now just has to control this race from the front, but it's going to be a mighty chase now from Ryan Odo to try and get back to him.
Yeah, Odo really going to have to put his nose to the grindstone to reel in that gap. As much as it's not going to be able to win him the championship, nothing will. I feel like a win at the end of this season for Ryan Odo would give him a little bit of consolation, for lack of a better term, as we head off into the off-season before the 2026 Radical Americas Championship. You can tune into the Radical Sim Racing socials to figure out what we're going to see in the 2026 season. Certainly looking forward to it. My second season covering the Radical Americas Championship. Got to cover it in 2024 over on another network, and I've had the privilege of covering it here in 2025 here on RaceSpot. Been an awesome season, and we have a grandstand finish to look forward to. If Ryan Odo could close up that gap, I'm sure himself and Aiden Young, who despite being championship rivals throughout the season, still seem to be good pals off the racetrack. Rather strong camaraderie felt between those racers. Gonna see them duke it out for the win. Odo in this race would look to try and get his 4th. Aiden Young, meanwhile, would look to end off a championship campaign with his 5th.
It really has been about those two in the pro class. We've seen other wins. Rasim Fazui came in for round 5 and then left again after winning. Be nice to see it back again, but he's maintaining his 100% record. Now Bodo Diaz is the only other winner, so 4 out of 10 it looks like it's going to be, but this race is far from over. Bodo is not that far behind Aiden Young here, and he's going to be putting the pressure on right to the very end. You just wonder whether he's got the speed here to actually manage this over the course of the next 18 minutes. Aiden Young's not really going to have much in the way of overtaking to do, even with these pit stops going on. He might have to put a lap on the likes of some of the others in the field, but even so, it looks like it is going to be him controlling from here as Jared Dunkovic comes in for the final time this season. Yet to see Jose Gonzalez in, but Dunkovic doing all he can by leading this AM race at the moment. He might actually be pretty close to Gonzalez at the end of this pit stop cycle.
Yeah, that'd be very cool to see a battle right at the very end in the AM category. Still trying to sort out who will be your champion in this season of AM competition in the Radical Americas Championship. Looked like Jose Gonzalez holds on to the race lead for now, but still 17 minutes left to go on the clock. We'll say, talking about the battle between Aiden Young and Ryan Odo and what may come out of that, I think Odo finds himself in the terror zone, I think, is the best way to describe it. The complete opposite of the Goldilocks zone. He is just close enough to Aiden Young whereby he's getting a whole lot of dirty air off the back of that 427 car. These cars are very aero sensitive, and that front splitter and its relationship to the rest of the car and how much downforce it is producing so pivotal in deciding whether or not these drivers can have the confidence level that they need to run at full 10/10s here at Mid-Ohio. But Odo close enough to Young whereby he's getting a lot of dirty air, but not close enough whereby he can get the draft heading down that back straight too. So Ryan Odo in a really tough spot, gonna have to break through. Once he breaks that gap to below a second, we're going to see that battle really start to flare up. But Odo gonna have to put in a shift to try and get there.
He is, and there is one of the bits of traffic that he's going to have to worry about there as well. Aiden Young, that is Charles Kresic. He's currently 11th. Just wait and see whether he's still going, Kresic. He's been out there for nearly 30 laps on those tyres, and he did on that tank of fuel. It's a very long way, but he should be able to make one more pit stop in that case and make it home. We'll do the maths in that case. And oh no, he's off! Down into Charlie Beach, he locks up. Oh, he avoids the gravel actually, but he's off down at turn 4. And this is a driver who needed to make up places today, needs to finish ahead of Colby Book ideally to try and get into the top 7. It looks like he's just going to miss out on the World Finals. It'll have to be in the qualifiers by the looks of this at the moment.
And now we get to the point where he may have to worry about picking up any sort of incident point penalties. A reminder, folks, in terms of the incident rules, pick up 15x in one of these races, you incur a penalty. If you hit 25, you get taken out of the session, you get disqualified. So he's really been running on the ragged edge all throughout this race, running at 10/10ths, trying to get himself into the World Finals, but many times he has pushed that car over the edge, over the limit, and it has not gone well for him here in the season finale at Mid-Ohio. We'll have to keep an eye on that racer of Charles Krasick to see whether or not he can make it to the end without having any more bits of drama, any more bits of lawn mowing, so to speak, here at Mid-Ohio, so he can avoid the penalties and try and make the best out of a bad situation.
You can see the difference in terms of sectors between Young and Odo. Just not able to gain at the moment, Ryan Odo. The pressure mounting on Aiden Young, but as I think Havok Gullikson said to us actually after the Friday night race, it's very difficult to throw a good driver off. It was Andre Castro in that situation who was in front of Gullikson, but when you've got an experienced driver in front of you, it's very difficult to put pressure on them and try and get through on them that way. The gap, once it's there, is very difficult to bring back again as Alberto Diaz comes into the pit lane now for the final time in the regular season. He will pull to the left-hand side and he'll hope that his pit stop is lightning quick so that Aiden Young doesn't pass him, but I'm afraid unless it's going to be about 2 seconds long, he isn't going to get out in front. It will be the shortest of the three, about 10 seconds. Less, in fact, just 8.7, but Odo and Young get through, and they're pretty much as they were, equidistant from each other, not particularly close to one another.
Yeah, so now everybody is, just about everybody, I should say, has gotten their pit stops taken care of. We can put our noses back to the grindstone and just try and bring it home for the final round of the season. Ryan Odo really getting a wiggle on as he headed his way out of 2. I think the handling's starting to fall away in that number 15 machine. We'll have to keep an eye on that gap to himself and Ubaldo Diaz. But on the subject of the officials and one of our official stars, that being Andre Castro, there's a story that I can share with Andre. It has nothing to do with radicals, but it has something else to do with one of the past iRacing special events. I feel kind of bad saying this, but just underscores the chaos of a iRacing special event that our producer, Mr. Ramiro Agustin Cisneros, was covering here on RaceSpot just a couple of days ago. So, Ewan, would you like to hear about how the Formula Ford Festival can bite in a bad way?
Oh yeah, well, I have heard a bit of this, but tell the story anyway. Yeah.
Yes, I think you may have heard this from our esteemed RaceSpot colleague, one of our newest additions to the RaceSpot crew, Howie Burrows, who I was actually doing this broadcast with a matter of a couple of days ago. It was of, I think, the first time slot of the Formula Ford Festival, and that race is known as being rather frenetic and rather hair-raising and terrifying for the drivers out there on the circuit and terrifying for broadcasters alike. I think my vocal cords have not yet fully recovered after that midway through Friday. But Andre Castro was actually registered in that. Castro, very good driver in the sim, fantastic outside of the sim, though. He actually finished 3rd in the 2021 Formula Ford Festival in real life. So very good racer in a Ford and knows how to run him in iRacing too. Has a pro license as well. I should say had a pro license in the open wheels. Ran in that. Had a decent amount of falling anvils come down on his head. Very unfortunate. Nothing he could really do there. Just incidents breaking out around him, and nothing he could have done but make contact. And leaving that event, he lost his pro license. I feel bad for him because there was really nothing that he could do, but it really shows you how chaotic that Formula Ford Festival can really get. That special event I absolutely adored. I know Arjuna Kankapati and Lewis McLeod, if I remember correctly, were the commentary crew on RaceSpot's coverage of that event just a matter of about 48 hours ago.
Yeah. It's I must admit, I've never seen it with my own 2 eyes, but I've heard a lot about it. So guess I've got to watch it at some point. I always seem to be busy on Formula 4 weekend, which is a bit of a shame, but never mind. These things happen. But yeah, hopefully, I mean, it's a shame Castro's not in this series, really, isn't it? I guess he must be doing something else on a Sunday night, but he'd be right in with these guys, wouldn't he, with Odo and Young. We've seen him in the Friday nights, of course. I think he's back leading our own mini standings again after his win on Friday, ahead of Gullickson and Friedrich and all the others. So maybe that gives us a good idea as to the American versus European fields and how they're going to run on World Finals night on the 23rd of November. But yeah, he'd be right in with these guys, wouldn't he? Another pro name to throw into the mix with these two.
You know, when we started off covering these radicals on RaceSpot right towards the start of this year, it was after season 1 of 2025 when all the action moved here to RaceSpot, and I was very fortunate to be on the journey after leaving from another network. But when Andre Castro first started running in these RaceSpot broadcasted radical official races, it wasn't really campaigning for a specific team. He was just kind of showing up for fun, deciding to let his hair down and just have some good racing. Now, however, now that he has signed with BS Competition Hybrid, signed midway through last season and was able to capture your 2025 Season 3 Radical Esports Cup Official Series Championship, I would love to see him campaign here in the Radical Americas side of things. Darn good racer in the officials, and based off the fact that he was actually battling with your 2025 Radical European Pro Champion in the form of Christoph Lipp, who was able to get that job done earlier today at Circuit Zandvoort. But however, Andre Castro would really be a standout star here. I think it would give Aiden Young, Ryan Odo, and Ubaldo Diaz a big run for their money, and it would throw a nice little character in the midst of that as well. I love Andre. Andre's a great guy. Him and I have actually had some discussions in relation to him randomly finding my old YouTube videos talking about IndyCar and the road to Indy, which he was a part of for a decent period of time as well. But a very nice guy, very quick racer too, and I would love to see him run in these Radical Americas Championship. Keep an eye, folks. On 2026, maybe we could see another driver try and stake their claim on a Radical Americas crown.
Sounds like you're going to have to do some recruitment work there with him to get him to join us for 2026. Of course, he'll have to get himself accustomed to the series or whatever. But it'd be great to have on the grid, as I say, as James Franzik makes his final stop of the season. Last 8 minutes, and still haven't seen our last stop from Jose Gonzalez. But at the moment, that looks like it's going to come very, very soon. As things stand for Jarek Dunkovic, even if he gets into 4th place and gets into the lead of the AM class, it will not be enough, even if Jose Gonzalez crashes and finishes in last. So that's the scenario we have in the AM Championship. Gonzalez comfortable because Dunkovic not quite able to do enough. And it's always the thing with the AMs, isn't it? Mathematically possible, but so difficult when you tell these AMs, you know, you've got to probably beat most of the pro field if you want to win the title today. And even then, it might not be enough.
Yeah, the AM category is one that always rewards consistency. You gotta be consistently showing up to these races, consistently running smooth. You gotta minimize those bad days, make sure the bad days are as good as imaginable, and make sure those great days are absolute stunners. And Jose Gonzalez has been able to do that with the win tally he's had up to this point. We broke through and talked about the wins that he has had up to this point in the season. Was able to get 2 straight at Road America and Road Atlanta to kick the season off. Then Jarek Dunkovic started to be a bit of a thorn in his side throughout most of the summer and heading off into the very late summer. In fact, I think it didn't stretch into the fall. But Gonzalez was able to really do himself a lot of favors with the win at Belle Isle last time out in round number 9 of this Radical Americas season. I gotta say as well, speaking of this schedule, unrelated from the AM class championship battle between those two, we tried something a little bit different this year here in the Radical Sim Racing world. Last season, every event was basically run like today. The European series would run the European evenings, and then the Americas series would run in the Americas evenings on the exact same day at the exact same tracks. This season, a little bit different, had that swap-roo, so many of these races, in fact all of them, were held on different racetracks and different configurations of them, did give us a nice little dynamic to talk about throughout this season on both sides of the aisle. So very nice to see that. It's unfortunate, not nice to see that moment for Joel Jacklin as he headed his way off through the mid-sector, was trying to reel in Colby Buck in that battle for P9, but hopped the berm, went off the track, and now it's about 2 seconds between the two.
Yeah. I think it's quite nice. I know it wasn't planned, but I think it's quite nice to have it on the final day, to have both of the series together, actually. Just to, you know, clear them both up in one go. We were meant to have the European finale last week. Of course, the Formula 1 race was happening at the same time, so we decided to delay by a week, and that was probably the right call in the end. But having the final day is, I think, good on today. But maybe for the rest of the season, as you say, it's been good to have that variety. Good to keep an America's schedule and an America's European schedule. The only non-America's circuit, by the way, was the very first round of the championship at the Northside in the America's World. The European Championship did have a couple more trips abroad to Long Beach, Suzuka, Bathurst, Fuji. Plenty of non-European rounds to that series as Aiden Young gets 4 laps to go here tonight from Mid-Ohio. I was just about to utter the words, is Gonzalez ever going to pit? And the answer to that was immediately yes. He won't stay in front of Dunkovic. He is still doing enough, though, for the title. He's just going to be bringing it home at this stage. It's going to be another podium finish, another second position finish here as well. The last time he didn't achieve that was all the way back in late August at Sebring. That will be 3 rounds in a row with a top 2 finish if Gonzalez can close this one out now.
And getting back to the point that I was mentioning in reference to that AM-Class Championship battle, what you got to do to be the top of that category, you just got to be consistent. Always show up to these races, always put in a good drive, and that's what Jose Gonzalez has been able to do ever since the drop of the green flag in the opening rounds through to the checkered flag coming up here in only a few minutes' time here at Mid-Ohio. Gonzalez has made sure the great days were fantastic, and even the bad days that he had, we would say it was an off day and a bad day for him if he was running in P2 in class. So an absolutely dominant storm for him as this battle for P5 overall going to be intense with himself and Diego Zuccarelli, the driver of the number 26 car, the Canadian, trying to get that move done. So close to contact, and Zuccarelli going to go off the racetrack, I think, or just barely held on to it as they headed their way off through the tight twisties right at the end of that back flat out blast.
He just went off camera and flew off the circuit. Well, it looked like he was flying off the circuit. He actually managed to hold on quite nicely. Gonzalez keeps his position, though, over Diego Zuccarelli, who, it has to be said, has struggled a little bit. He's been consistent enough in appearing enough times to actually end up in the World Finals anyway, but has struggled a little bit. Got his first podium last round at Ballard, of course, where we were last time out. He got the third place finish, I think. But, yeah, unfortunately, Zuccarelli has struggled a bit this season and has found himself battling with the top end of the AMs more than anything. And it might be difficult for him to find his way past Gonzalez here as well. There'll be 3 laps to go, but, you know, that's not a long time to make a move around here.
Yeah, battling here at Mid-Ohio. This is an odd comparison, but I'll need all of you to hear me out, as I often do give these very odd metaphors and odd comparisons. This track, in an odd sense, is basically like the road course version of Martinsville. Very, very historic of a racetrack. Very narrow, very old school, very technical too, and sometimes you do have to get a little bit physical to try and get the moves done. And when you do try and get it done, it's not a matter of one dive off into a corner and there you go. You gotta work for it. We have seen throughout this race drivers who go for a move, they don't just clear them heading down into one turn. It's like, okay, I go for the dive into 4, and by turn number 5 I'm clear, don't have to worry about it at all. No, you need to put in the effort to get a move done here at Mid-Ohio. That's part of the reason why it always puts on some pretty compelling racing, seeing these racers have to push at 10/10s even when they push above that to try and get along side by side in the first place. Yeah, absolutely love to see these old school racetracks. Mid-Ohio may not be everybody's favorite, may not put on the most thrilling action, but you need these old school racetracks to remain to the roots of motorsports, and this track is as grassroots as you can get in the Americas side of motorsports.
Yes, it certainly is. As Aiden Young makes his way towards the final lap. He's going to round out his championship win with another race win. Be 3 in 4 for him and 4 in the season overall. 5 in the season overall, rather. He's already got 4. He comes over the line. He'll see the white flag. Just one more to go. Gonzalez at the bottom of your screen, by the way, continuing to hold off Zuccarelli and is managing it, and time very much is on Gonzalez's side.
Yeah, and as we focus so much on your pro champion here in 2025 of Aiden Young, got to give some love to Jose Gonzalez in that AM category as well. All throughout the season, I've kept tabs on that AM class to see who's doing well, who's putting in the good results, and ever since he went for back-to-back wins to get the season up and rolling, I knew that Jose Gonzalez was going to be a very formidable competitor in 2025 indeed. He's only about a lap away now from sealing the deal to win that AM class championship. But Aiden Young, a couple of turns away from getting his 5th win, to be batting 500 at the end of this Radical America season, and to put an exclamation point on an incredible run here in the 2025 Radical America Championship.
And through Thunder Valley for the final time. Aiden Young has controlled this race ever since he was given a bit of a gap by Reinaldo and Obodo Diaz's battle earlier on in the day. He's going to win another race, 5 out of 10 in the Radical Sim Racing America's Championship in 2025. Aiden Young is your champion, and he is a winner of half of the races this season too. 2.5 seconds in front of Ryan Odo, who at a time in that final stint was really putting him under pressure, from a distance that is, but nevertheless it was there. And meantime, Jose Gonzalez has spun on the last lap. Jared Dunkovic is still not doing enough to take the AM title away from him, but it's not the smooth final race that the AM champion was hoping for. Dunkovic will come across the line and win the AM class now. He finishes 4th. Zuccarelli will get 5th. Gonzalez will drop to 6th in the end, and Dunkovic will close that championship margin, but not by enough to overhaul it. In fact, Gonzalez is only going to limp in front of Franznik in the end. It was very deep from Zuccarelli. Gonzalez went to the outside. He stepped on it out of the exit at turn 5. He was trying hard to keep that top 5, but he couldn't quite do it. He takes the title nevertheless by just about less than 30 odd points. In fact, to be closer to 20, but he won't mind at all. He finishes 6th tonight, and he is confirmed as the champion.
Yeah, so we'll say that Gonzalez was getting a bit of donut practice, an impromptu donut practice in that small little run out of turn number 5. So easy to loop it as the cars crest the hill. The weight drops down, and unfortunate mistake for him, but overall, fantastic season from Gonzalez. Fantastic season here in the Radical America's Championship period. Those racers put on some good battles all throughout, but at the end of the day, the battles were won by our champions.
Aiden Young, indeed, our champion in waiting, is race winner tonight after 46 laps in front of Ryan Odo by 2.5 seconds. It's Obodo Diaz who rounds out the podium places. Jared Dunkovic wins in the AM class from 4th. Diego Zuccarelli gets in front of Jose Gonzalez, who wins the AM title in the end. James Franznik, the last driver on the lead lap, in 7th. John Benelid, Colby Buck and Joel Jacklin all 1 lap down. Charles Kresic finishes in front of Gio Gregory and Cedric Ohion, but doesn't do enough to get into the World Finals, and so Kresic will stay on the qualifiers coming up on the 16th of November. We'll just hang on for a moment and hope that some of the drivers come in for a chat, as they so often do, but I think that was a bit better in terms of overtaking, Ron, than we were expecting. I mean, it's always going to stretch out that field over the course of an hour-long race, because that's what hour-long races are like, and that's what they're for, the best to rise to the top. But as far as overtaking chances go, I think we got more tonight than on Friday.
And, I'm going to go back to the point that I said right before we grabbed the green flag that I really think did cause a lot more overtakes than we saw in that official. These racers, a lot of them knew where they're going to wind up in the championship. So they're just out here trying to shake the cobwebs off, so to speak, end this season off on the best note imaginable. Others weren't able to do that. Others were, however, to get their wins, get their championships, and just get some good results indeed. So I think that could be part of the reason why everybody was a bit more aggressive, going for the moves that we didn't see in the officials. They just knew, hey, look, this is a final race of the season. Don't have a lot to fight for. Let's just go out and end this season with a whole lot of fun.
Well, Jack Dunkovic has got himself waiting for us, so we'll bring him in now to have a chat after the race tonight. AM winner. Jack, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Congrats on an AM win at the end. I'm sure you weren't necessarily expecting to overhaul Gonzalez in the championship, although you did get a bit closer. Not enough points for that, but you must be pleased with the class win. How was the race?
Hey, good evening, Ewan. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, this race was a good one. I did not expect to overcome Jose. It was definitely going to be a long shot if I had to. But hey, you know what? That's why we race. You never know exactly what's going to happen. We just gave it the best we could, all we could, and came out on top. So hey, listen, we're going to close out the year and at least in the season on a high note, especially after the past couple of weeks. It's been pretty rough. At least in terms of racing and stuff, as you know, from the official series and whatnot. But yeah, it was just a good race this time, and it was nice to come out with the win. And congrats to Jose for the championship. That's awesome. He was a tough competitor, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, it may be a difficult time in the officials, but in this series, the Radical SimRacing Americas Championship, you've won in the AM class at least 3 of the last 4 rounds. Which is good momentum towards the end of the season. Just reflecting on 2025, how have you found it, and how is that momentum going forward into the World Finals coming up in a few weeks' time?
Yeah, honestly, just really happy that we found the pace towards the end of the year, or even during the middle of the season. I don't know what happened, but it felt like a switch came on, and help from the DCG boys and just everyone behind me and whatnot. It just helped. But yeah, really excited going forward for the rest of the year coming, and then next year starting up. 2025 was awesome. Looking forward to 2026 and the World Finals. This is going to be fun. I can't wait to go to battle with the guys in Europe, and this is going to be a nice square off to see who's going to come on top. And I think we got a good team this year going towards the World Finals, so it'll be fun. Be fun to see what we can do.
Absolutely. We look forward to seeing you there, Jarrett. But for now, thanks for chatting to us, and I'm sure we'll see you again soon, probably before the World Finals as well.
Yeah, I bet you will. Anyway, you guys have a good night and appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Jarrett Dunkovic, the winner tonight in the AM class in the final round of the Radical SimRacing Americas Championship. While we've been chatting to him, the pros have finally decided to turn up. Untimely, but anyway, they're here finally. And Aidan Young can now join us too. The race winner overall tonight. Aidan, congrats on the win. Putting to bed, or maybe not putting to bed, but at least on hold, myths about this circuit being impossible to overtake on. You immediately took that on lap 2 and said you can make overtakes, and showed us in towards turn 4. Just how did you size up that move on Ryan and eventually getting past Diaz there to take home the win?
Well, I knew I had to try something, so when I saw I had the run on Ryan, I was like, okay, I'm not the best on short-term pace there at the beginning for like maybe the first lap and a half, maybe 2, but as soon as I got the run, I was like, okay, I've got to go, and I know I can get it in there, but it's a little bit of a long shot, but I got to do it if I want a chance at getting the race win, because just trying to win the race on strategy would be probably a little bit too much and too big of an ask. So put the move in there, and I was like, once I got it, I was like, okay, focus on Ubaldo now, and just kept my sights on him and chased him down.
And that means you excuse me, that means you've won half the races this season in 2025 now. Overall, how is the feeling going into the World Finals? Because it's so often been the Europeans coming out on top. How are you going to take the fight to that for the Americas here with yourself in such good form?
I don't know, we'll see, but I mean, I hope I can do good. Goal is, now that I have pace, and I've compared my pace to Christoph and his brother Sebastian, and I seem to be pretty quick compared to them, so we'll see if I can take the fight to him. So Christoph, Sebastian, if you're listening, I'm coming for you too.
I'm sure they're in bed, to be honest. But thanks for chatting to us, Aidan, as always. Look forward to seeing you at the World Finals, if not before. And congrats again on the win.
Thank you. Yep. See you guys at the World Finals.
Thanks very much. That's Aidan Young, who wins tonight at Mid-Ohio in front of Ryan Odo, who finishes in second place here tonight. Ryan, welcome and good to have you with us. The gap was about a second and a half when you came out the pit lane there for the final time this season. Did you ever have hope that you would run Aiden down, or was it always going to be a tough ask there?
Well, it's probably going to always be a tough ask there. I mean, when I was having a battle with Ubaldo, I absolutely cooked my tires having a scrap with him. So I was most definitely lower on the strategy game for tires than Aiden was. So I probably didn't have a chance in catching him. I feel like we were lapping similar, not too different, and might have been traffic as well. That was what brought up that gap. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun tonight.
How are you feeling going into the World Final now? We speak so often about the Europeans having the measure of the Americas guys so far in the history of the World Finals, but how are you looking forward to that event in 3 weeks' time now?
Well, I'm looking to change that history. I'm going to practice some extra hard for the World Finals. Instead of practicing for 1 week, I'm probably going to do 2, maybe even 2.5 weeks for that, because I really want to win that. Since I couldn't win the Americas Championship, I feel like it could be a revival for me.
Well, nothing else for me to say other than I hope you don't. No, nicely. I'm joking. But good luck for that. We look forward to seeing you then in a few weeks' time. And if not before, of course, congrats again on second place finish tonight and a great season.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks very much. Ryan Odo, second place tonight in Mid-Ohio. And Abado Diaz, who finishes third tonight in the final race of the season. Abado, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Third place and a pole position for you tonight. Just talk us through that qualifying lap and how pleased you were to start this race from the very front.
Yeah, it was a good final weekend. I think pace was not very strong, so it was definitely surprising to stick the car on pole. But it was a good lap nevertheless, and yeah, it's nice to go with a little souvenir from the championship, which has been insanely competitive. Only this race we got tiny margins between Ryan, me, and Aiden. So yeah, I was surprised to get pole, but yeah, in the race I struggled a lot with tires. Tire wear was higher than I expected, so it was hard to keep them at bay, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very, very hot out there today. It certainly looked like it. And now in the last 4 rounds of the season, you've been on the podium every time. That makes it 6 podiums overall in 2025. Just reflect for us on the season that you've had and how you're looking forward to the final event on the 23rd of November, the World Finals.
Yeah, you see, it was very up and down season of learning a lot. This is probably the longest championship I've been in by far, so it has tested my consistency over time extremely hard. It's been complicated to stay focused, to stay on time, on the pace, especially since the pace is so high on this league. So yeah, it's definitely been a learning experience, a very valuable one at that. So it's been a season where I started strong, second place on the Nordschleife, first place at Road America, which was very nice. Then from Road of Plana on, I started to struggle. I had terrible races objectively, so it was kind of hard to get back to my pace, you know. But I'm happy that I managed to find my feet again at Mosport. So yeah, overall I'm happy with the season. Obviously a lot of learning from it, and that's what I gotta do, you know, just learn and get better every time. That's all I can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we look forward to seeing you again at that final round, Abado, but thanks for chatting to us at the end tonight, and congrats on another podium.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Thanks very much. That's Abado Diaz, who finishes third tonight. And that's just about it from us here tonight in the Radical Sim Racing Americas Championship. A season complete, Ron, but the great thing about the Radical Sim Racing Championship is that it's not quite over. We almost have a sort of post-season, if you like. The final qualifier event coming up on the 16th of November before the World Finals on the 23rd of November as well. There's a lot to look forward to, and I think maybe this year more than ever before, the Americas guys not only hoping, but this time believing they can take it to the European guys who've had such dominance in the last few years.
Yeah, I think this Radical America's stable of drivers heading off into the World Finals in a couple of weeks have a really good shot to be a thorn in the side to the usual European top runners and the drivers that we usually see campaign quite a lot over in the Friday 2100 GMT broadcasted races that we cover here on RaceSpot. But it has been an amazing season here in the 2025 Radical America's Championship. Got the privilege to cover 2024 and have had the privilege to be here for 2025. Ewan, it's been one heck of a ride. We've seen some great racing, some great action, some great drivers hit a wide selection of awesome racetracks. It's been an honor, man. It has been a privilege indeed. Let's hope that we can run it back in 2026 because this was one heck of a ride.
Absolutely, and make sure you join us again, of course, in the qualifiers and World Finals events as well that are coming up on 16th and 23rd of November. We look forward to them greatly, but for now, that's it from us here on RaceSpotTV. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside Ron Mounds with Ramiro Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras. It's goodbye for 2025 in the regular season of the Radical Sim Racing America's Championship. Hope you'll join us for the postseason coming up in a couple of weeks' time. But from all of us from Mid-Ohio, it's goodbye for now.